But not here.
Yeah, no.
All right, anytime you're ready, Aaron and Shanae.
What is that thing?
Few last minute details.
Oh, we're gonna videotape?
Yeah.
That's nice. She's
Good evening,
videotaping.
everyone. We had an awesome group, and we have some great ideas that we're really excited
Can't
about.
hear, can't hear.
Okay.
Awesome group, great ideas.
Thank you, Dolores. Go in the middle. So one of the ideas that we came about with, in terms of improving the community, would be a walkable and rollable community. Additional street lighting, attractive streets with appropriate curb cuts, connecting Wooster Square to parts that have been cut off through Grant Avenue. Also, in terms of all of the redevelopment that is occurring in the community, we would like to see something for the youth, maybe a youth center. And then for the older, young adults, I like to call them, possibly a bar, but not your traditional bar, but something that's, you know, that's inviting to younger and older adults.
Cheers.
Yeah, right? Which is so, and everybody knows your name. Like that.
Sandwiches.
Yes. And as it relates to the number of developers that are actually coming into the community, creating jobs for people in the area, and not just jobs that are paying minimum wage, but somehow, you know, connect with the community by also providing training as well as employment, because at the end of the day, we look at self-sufficiency, and so how can they help people in the community to obtain self-sufficiency. And then the last one is connecting East Rock to State Street.
Connecting
Okay.
improvements on East Street,
Okay.
which is this kind of underused, boulevard, but that could connect East Rock to Wooster Square to Mill River, Fairhaven area.
Thank you. That includes our wonderful
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, table number 2. Two folks. Frank, and I'm sorry I didn't get your name.
Richard Bailey?
Richard Bailey.
Yeah, really, our table is also interesting and very social. It was kind of nice. Basically, we broke down to a number of questions. A lot of it having to do with both Winslow, Solentano, and Farnham Court. And basically, Farnham Court in regard to, is it on schedule? I don't know if that was going to be responded to or not. But in regard to improvements, the zoning strip for that land between Worcester Street and Water Streets, I want to know who's interested in developing it. And actually, we're talking about pharmacies, a laundromat, as well as the future developments for the Long Wharf area. And actually, we were bringing up more questions for people, but I imagine that's going to happen in a later meeting. But it was certainly those ideas that were coming up from our group.
For those who are interested, Farnham Court is moving ahead on schedule. We anticipate closing, having a financial closing on that for October and begin our construction thereafter. The first construction will be for the front of the property where the park is now, which is
Yeah. we brought the
When?
picture, too. They brought-
October.
October is the financial closing, so it's going to take a little time after that to get the bulldozers out. No, right after that, Karen's saying. What was your last point? I didn't.
Oh yeah, the desired residential. We like kind of a smaller version of what happened on State Street. We have a retail at the bottom and residential on top.
Okay.
And we're looking for, talking about pharmacies, laundromats, and things.
A bank, probably.
That would be so cool. But things that the community had for a while, but are gone now.
Okay. When you say what happened on State Street, are you referring to State Street in East Rock, where
The
the older buildings, or
State Chapel.
the new buildings?
The new one, but on a
360?
smaller scale.
not that tall, but same values. How tall? How tall will you go?
Almost something like what they're doing now.
6.
Yeah, no, probably no more than 6 foot.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
All right, table number 3.
So I think we had a lot of similar ideas going on in terms of what we want the general neighborhood to look like. And we started by saying that we really want to think about the long-range plans of development for the area, which fits into the comprehensive plan. Some of the biggest issues were environmental concerns and health concerns relating to where things, like for the new Farnham development, separating that from the highway with more green space. And generally, we said that having more like plantings and flowers on the streets makes the neighborhood more inviting, and we think that that will help improve the character of the neighborhood as well. We had a lot of ideas. There are some areas of the neighborhood that we think that LCI could maybe do a better job enforcing codes, or
I think we said definitely.
And with issues like a lot of garbage all over the street, with people using things that were zoned for example, there was a laundromat that is turned into housing. And there is a certain street, I can't remember which one, that has like 11 social services on it. And Grand Avenue. And there's a concern with that and the kind of population that has started gathering around it, and the kind of violence and crime that is around that area. So regarding that, we would like to see more things in terms of economic development that includes like a coffee house or a bookstore, a bank, a laundromat, and that includes rezoning Grand Avenue, and generally more cleaning of the streets, and a more bike-friendly environment with either bike lanes or just a better way to ensure bike safety on the streets. And we said that Chapel Street is a great example of mixed-use residential and businesses, and we just generally, streetscape was a thing that we want to focus on.
We did. You were just.
Oh, sorry, I was wrong about that.
And you missed something, because we were talking about, I thought we had a whole conversation in the beginning about keeping the scale of our neighborhood.
Right.
And for our neighborhood to go to State Street, to keep starting from State Street on, that the character of the neighborhood around Wooster Square was something that, even though there's lots of problems, it draws people, and we wanted to continue to do that, and that to extend to, and the scale of it, and to extend to State Street.
Along East Street?
So just to have
Not State Street, not all of it.
Chapel.
Where are you connecting to State Street? From Chapel, from Court Street, from which street are you connecting to State Street?
I think what we're trying to say is to
It's
not
an order.
arbitrarily
Yeah.
bring downtown into Worcester's, into this area, but maintain the current boundaries of Worcester Square and
the scale.
and the scale, and look at it as a larger neighborhood, which we have been advocating for and working toward for decades, so that everything from Worcester Square all the way up through William Street and so forth is indeed a neighborhood. It is physically, it is in reality, and I think that we were discussing that by improving Grand Avenue to make that more usable and include residential as well as retail, possibly decreasing, the zoning would possibly decrease the requirements for parking, so that there could be more of an incentive to where people in our neighborhood walk. So we don't necessarily need the same requirements as others. Is that pretty much what we were talking about?
Can the scribe add that to the list of things?
Yeah.
It was
It just
on here, I
came through
just didn't mention it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, did you go all the way through the list?
I think so, yeah.
Good, well done, Natalie. She's only been planning for 2 months, so.
It's not bad.
In general, they just wanted a welcoming environment into the neighborhood and make it more attractive.
Table number 4.
Healthy.
Last but not
Healthy.
least, we want 40-story buildings. And just kidding. So there was a lot of stuff that came out. It kind of started off with, especially some of the areas around Grand Avenue, the sense of around
Guys, last one.
certified childcare is one thing. Coffee shops came up kind of numerous times as well too.
Table 3. Could we keep it down, please, for table 4?
And
Really.
even stuff like, you know, a lot of people in the neighborhood work 2 shifts or something like that, so a place to buy milk at 3 a.m. You know, some convenience store, some kind of corner store, or something like that would be good. We talked a little bit about transitions, Mill River, between downtown, and how that should look. There was some kind of interesting conversation about that. We kind of got off topic a little bit with that. But we wanted to kind of pay attention to transitions areas, and I think a little bit like this table, if I could get sense that it still maintains the character of Wooster Square. We are also for flower baskets as well too.
Nice baskets in front of your,
Yes.
on Olive Street.
Tomatoes, thanks
Yes,
to Peter
very
Webster.
nice.
But we're about flower power. Is what
Put some
we're about.
flowers
So, and one way we could probably do that is we set a district improvement district, which would be additional taxes, obviously, on our business owners, but also would bring in some benefits as well too. So we want to do that, especially around Wooster Square, Wooster Street. Is looking a little bit, could look a little bit better, and they could take a little bit better care of that as well too. We'd love to see flower baskets there as well too. So we had a question: what is too dense? We started using that word dense. Like we don't want it to be too dense. So what does that look like? And there was, you know, some kind of hitting around on that, but we're more worried about height. I think I'd like to share a lot of concerns around the height. Kind of the 5 to 6 story building is kind of as high as we want to go. If we were talking about Olive Street, kind of like the Yale Medical Surgical Supply.
Too high. No,
Too high.
6 is too
Well, this is our table. You guys can duke it out in the parking lot. So, we were thinking around the 5 to 6 stories. What our table was thinking. So, just the messenger. And if we're going to do mixed use, we want to do real mixed use. Don't put a gym on the bottom floor and call that mixed use. We want real mixed use of stores and stuff like that too.
A private gym is what we're saying. A
What?
private gym.
A private gym,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
A private gym for the complex.
Yes,
Thank you
exactly.
for clarifying.
Nothing wrong with a
Yeah.
gym if it's open to
Oh, so
everyone.
if it was open to the public?
Yeah.
Yes,
That'd be
yes.
okay.
It would be okay, you're saying don't have just the.
Right. The apartment complex's
resident
gym, like, you know,
Yeah.
like that's just for them, and that's not really mixed use. It doesn't benefit the community. So, the walk from Union Street from the train station needs to be improved. Most people felt that at our table. There was one that said it.
From Detroit.
But she lived in Detroit, so we don't even count. So around, you know, the high school and the community and some other stuff around there, it could look a little bit better. It could feel a little bit safer. We think that would improve everything kind of in the neighborhood as well too. So pay attention to that. I don't know if it was because Doug was at our table when we started talking a lot about traffic and patterns and stuff like that too. We're a little bit worried about that and what that's going to look like. We talked a little bit about rail commuters and talked about some of the improvements of State Street Station. It's going to happen, and zip cars around the neighborhood, maybe a bike share or something like that. What would that look like? And then, and diverting a lot of the traffic to State Street, if we could as well too, because that's a big street and whatnot too. So if we could somehow, if somebody in their infinite wisdom could figure out how to get more traffic onto State Street, that would greatly be appreciated. Did you get that?
My camera broke.
What street? What street?
And then possibly, I mean, not to dwell too much on it, but play up a little bit the Little Italy thing as well too. So maybe some of the heritage around that, maybe putting pictures of what the neighborhood used to look like, bringing in some of the historical aspect around that, kind of the distinct flavor of what Wooster Square is all about. And then somebody had the crazy idea to build over the train tracks. We said Boston's Big Dig ain't got nothing on us. We're going to go over the train tracks, and what would that look like It's just a big kind of pie in the sky idea as well too. It kind of divides Wooster Square from downtown. We like the wide sidewalks, little cafe, little, Upper East Side, European feeling going on in Wooster Square would be great. But, we want wide sidewalks, but we also want the buildings to be close to the sidewalk as well too. But we want wide sidewalks if there's like a cafe. We want people kind of close to the sidewalks.
Close
Does that,
to streets.
close to the streets. Does that make sense? Everybody get what we're feeling? All right, okay, good. We want to kind of, close the Wooster Street exit. Some people talked about that. We know there's some history around that. It didn't work, but at least to kind of slow down the traffic somehow, because we know everybody gets on 95 that way, a lot of people. When I discovered that after a year living in New Haven, I was happy. But yeah, it's a lot of traffic kind of through there. William and Lion Street, there's maybe some development, some land over there that could be used as well too. Over by Olive Street and the railroad tracks, used to be like a gas station there apparently. That could be maybe some place to look at, some prime real estate.
He told me he's ready to sell. Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, if there's a buyer in the room, go for it.
Fire in a brownfield, great.
Yeah.
He's done the environmental. It's done the environmental.
It's not on the books.
Okay. And then some green space as well too to incorporate. We've got some green space which is real plus of Wooster Square, some parks around. But as we continue to develop, to maintain that green space as well too, not just interior parks for apartment complexes, but real communal green space, and to keep and maintain that. And basically around architecture, it has to look like it belongs. There are a few buildings that maybe don't look like they belong around Wooster Square. If I could go out on a limb here and say, so more kind of the traditional around the park kind of feeling is more kind of what people were feeling, like kind of a more historic, as I got more historic kind of feeling. Grass on the farmer's market would be nice, kind of play at that area a little bit. And then we talked a little bit in the last couple minutes, and really didn't get too much into it, but like about residents or homeowners. Maybe more residents and homeowners would be nice instead of just purely rentals as well too.
Clap. Someone clap.
You might ask the elected officials to sum up or say anything they want, and then I just want to say a few words before we are going to let you out of here on time. Is there anything you want to add, Aaron or Abby?
So I would say thanks everyone for coming out. This is a terrific turnout, and it sounds like a lot of really productive conversations had at every table. In terms of next steps, some of you I've probably spoken to about like what is actually going to come out of this meeting concretely. Obviously, the city plan, comprehensive plan for the city, it will be delivered in some form to be voted on in the next 12 months. But what are we going to do before that? So there will be a report that comes out of this document that we could point to when development comes into the neighborhood about we actually had a conversation with not just the people in this room, but another few dozen through the surveys and from around. And here's like the things that we can point to and say, yes, these are the kinds of businesses, the kind of development, the texture of the neighborhood we want to preserve. So on that, we will be meeting again, I'd say sometime in October. So I'll be in touch about with that document that everyone can look at and make some amendments to, and that we can really stand by as in the next year, 2 years, before we have all the zoning written up, there's a lot more interest in the neighborhood. Thanks again for coming out.
I was just going to say, sort of, there are the, like the 87 Union Street, that is a real concrete proposal that will also be advancing sort of on its own track. And I do think this conversation will help inform people as they think about what they want with that. So it's helpful on 2 grounds.
Dolores?
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of the community coming out and, giving their, input to this process, and I support him very much. My colleague from the 8th Ward, sorry, senior moment there. Aaron. And, yeah, I hope that whatever goes on will complement what's going on at the Coliseum site at 87 Union, and I hope that it all blends into making New Haven the great city that it is. You've all heard the news recently that New Haven has made the list of many, you know, up-and-coming cities in, I think, 2 categories, I don't remember which. Other senior moments, sorry.
And it wasn't what he said, it was
Exactly.
general.
Yeah, the quality of life and, you know, and all that good stuff. So we can only, you know, we have to go forward and improve. We don't want to go backwards. We want to be an inclusive city, which I think we are. We want to make it where people have good jobs, where people are proud of where they live, where the quality of life and the safety of our citizens is prime. Because we don't, you know, what do we have all these beautiful buildings for if you can't go out in the middle of the day or the middle of the night and walk about and do the business of living? So let's all stay in touch, and I'm going to be supporting Aaron and whatever he wants to push through. And I will be sure to be very vocal to the rest of the board to support what all of you want to happen here.
Yeah.
I'll be very quick. I mean, you guys have heard of the 87 Olive Street. You've heard of the Spinnaker development for Comcast. You know what's happening at the Coliseum site. Housing authorities working in Farnham Court. There's going to be a lot of development pressure in and around Wooster Square over the next decade. Your willingness to show up today and say, what do we want? What does this look like? How does it reflect our values in our community, in our neighborhood? How do we get our voices in? This is an incredible outpouring from this neighborhood. So I really salute Aaron, Abby, Dolores, whoever got people out here today, because it's so important that this community's voice is reflected in those decisions that are being made. It's happening all around. Pretending it's not happening, pretending that this neighborhood won't change would be foolish. Making sure that you're here, making sure that that change looks the way it should, it reflects Wooster Square's values, I think is really important. So, you know, I'm just really thrilled to represent so many at the state level to make sure I can do that stuff, but more so thrilled that you're willing to represent yourselves in this community in a strong, passionate way. I thought this was great, so thank you all for coming out and doing this.
So Doug has a video which we're hoping he'll be able to put up on YouTube. Not that he's not capable of it, I mean just that it gets there. Because we know he's very capable about that stuff. So if anybody wants a square over their face, you better tell him now. Because it's going to go up. So Smitha and I will work with the Alders on trying to summarize what came out of the meeting and the suggestions. But you'll have the YouTube for a reference, and we'll probably PDF these things. Maybe we'll type them up, but we'll PDF them and put them on the city's website so you can remind yourself. And do you want to just say a few words about how these things, recommendations, some of them will make their way into the comp plan?
As an example, for the 2003 comp plan, we had similar workshops, not as many as listening sessions as we are having lately. Like for this process, it was more extensive because we had a survey. We reached out to neighborhood management teams, and then now we are here with the listening sessions. But in 2003 too, there was a similar effort, but in a less time frame. And what Michael Piscatelli, at the time, who was the assistant director of comprehensive planning, did was that he summarized all the recommendations by neighborhood, and then the general feel of all these comments indicate to something. Like if it says we need more, for example, you're more concerned about the scale and the density, so it's like encourage more middle to low density developments in these neighborhoods, or middle to high density developments in these neighborhoods are preferable. Those are the general recommendations that came out of the plan, but specifically project-specific opportunities were listed by neighborhoods. Like in downtown, we have State Street property as an opportunity site, or we have Coliseum property as an opportunity site. So what I was hoping to do with the Alders after this meeting is, and now we know what you want in general about the land use preferences and other things, but what is it that you look at and say, oh, this is our opportunity site, and 10 years from now, these are the opportunities in the map. So that's probably something that we should figure out on the map too for project-specific opportunities. But general, whatever was summarized today in all the tables, as you can see, there's more consensus than more differences. So those will be listed by neighborhood, and those will be synthesized into a general common plan, common vision for the city, not like piecemeal approach whole issue. And also, it doesn't make sense to write something entirely different from what was done in 2003. It makes sense to look at what the recommendations were and see where people agree, where people do not agree, and where we should change the direction and which people do not agree. And I think that should be the general approach. If somebody disagrees, you can let me know.
So a question, you were talking about medium density, medium low density, medium high density. In the way that you're rewriting the comprehensive plan now, do you have some sort of chart that clearly defines what those are?
We have to look at what was defined in the current comp plan. I think it's based on dwelling units per acre.
Right.
And I think we should follow a similar pattern. I mean, it's
All right,
as much as possible.
we're getting into an area of detail that interests people, but maybe not everybody here, and we have 1 minute. Do you have a specific suggestion?
Yeah, I do. So one thing, for instance, I heard people at this table point to the plan behind Karen Farnham Court, saying like that, 6 stories, and that's 4 stories. And I think that one thing that could help would be when you have your draft together to come back and do something that often is done in these kinds of sessions where you have visual preference surveys, so you can actually see and not only see what is a 3 or 4 a block, but also to put those buildings, real buildings, not Worcester diagrams, next to things that are real Worcester Square buildings, so that people can really see what it is, and that and we define what those terms are, what, low, medium, high, and we've related it to very specific visual information.
Well, we'll see what our funding and our time allows, but we are certainly aware of visual preference surveys. We often try to, and we'll try to remember, to ask developers who are making proposals to do that, to put them in context, so you can see them in relationship to the building around them. Okay, we're done. Mayor's Night Out, August 13th at Celentano. It includes wards 7 and 8. That's an opportunity to take care of some of these day-to-day things like brighter street lights, tree limbs, etc. All the department heads will be there. Thank you very, very much for coming.